What's up and welcome in. You're watching Philadelphia 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. Hope all of you out there are having a fantastic start to your week. Another fantastic show on tap for you all today because there's a lot to get into. Joel Embiid making history last night in an epic performance, but did he do it all while suffering from some injuries? We'll dive into that, take a look at some Eric Gordon trade rumors, and also get to the latest on Joe Harris. But let's pivot back to Joel Embiid, one of the greatest performances that you will ever see from any player in the history of the NBA against the Utah Jazz. And Joel Embiid on Sunday, more points in that single performance than Ben Simmons has all year with the Brooklyn Nets. The final tallies for JoJo, ridiculous, filthy, unbelievable, unfathomable, really, with how good he was. 59 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 7 blocks on the night for Joel Embiid as he was getting it done on both ends of the floor. Some trash talk with Lauri Markkanen, and let's not take the Utah Jazz lightly. They have gotten off to a really impressive start as one of the better teams in the Western Conference, and this was a much-needed win for the Philadelphia 76ers and a much-needed performance from number 21. Now, is Embiid doing all of this with a bad shoulder? Over the weekend, after beating the Atlanta Hawks, he was asked about a couple of his ailments, and I was a little bit concerned, and then he goes off last night, and I'm like, okay, maybe Joel Embiid was just displaying that joking personality like he usually does, but he said his ankle was pretty sore after the Sixers win over Atlanta on Saturday, admitted that a shoulder injury is also impacting him, but is he exaggerating all of this, or are all of these just real issues? Obviously, he's able to silence some of that noise and some of those concerns with what he did against Utah when he was getting it done in the trenches. He was displaying that jumper. He was blocking shots as a defensive menace. Some of those classic chase down blocks as well, able to display that athleticism. But we go back to the injuries, and this is what he said after that Hawks game. I don't know what happened with the ankle, but some days I can't lift my arm up, and when I go block shots, I really feel it. I don't know what's going on, but it's whatever. When I see something like that, when Embiid is talking about his shoulder injury, I can't lift my arm up, just please don't be a labrum injury. Those are things that linger. Those are things that if you try to push off some of your injury issues, it just doesn't get any better. But Embiid, thankfully, able to show against the Utah Jazz that I think he's feeling just fine. And you look at his numbers up to this point, points per game up for Embiid this year as compared to last year. Rebounds are down. Field goal percentage up from the overall field, but the three-point numbers have been terrible, down from 37+% a year ago to 23.7. Blocks per game now going up after having 7 big ones against the Jazz. If you remember last year, though, Joel Embiid did get off to a little bit of a slow start before rounding into form and finishing second in that MVP voting for the second consecutive year. Before we get to the latest trade buzz around the NBA and how it could impact Philadelphia, are you subscribed to 76ers Now? If you are, I want to show you some love in the comment section. Type real one because I appreciate all of your support of the show. I cover the Eagles here at Chat Sports, cover the Sixers. They call me Mr. Philadelphia. And for all my Philly Bulls who are subscribed, I appreciate the love. If you aren't subscribed, this is why you should be. We give you year-round Sixers coverage, analysis, news, rumors with more subscribers. Maybe we can start doing watch parties at some point. Our trade deadline coverage and our NBA draft coverage up there with anybody else out there, and everything that we do is 100% free. So make sure you lock us in and subscribe today. Could the Sixers get some shooting help? We've talked about Eric Gordon a lot over the last calendar year or so. According to reports, he could be moved soon. We're going to get into that as well as Joe Harris. And with Eric Gordon here, the Sixers, Heat, Bucks, and the Suns all checked in on Eric Gordon over the last few months. Houston elected to not trade him. He's actually been getting some decent playing time with the Rockets during their rebuilding effort. But honestly, with the youth movement down there in H-Town, it makes no sense for the Rockets to really keep Eric Gordon, who's in his early 30s, because they are trying to rebuild that franchise. They're trying to give minutes and playing time to some of their young players, and Eric Gordon is in the way of that. But If the Sixers were to trade for Eric Gordon, it'd give them two things that I think they still need on this roster: shooting, which they need from three-point range, and defense, which hasn't been great to start the season. And Gordon would give Philly both of those things. You look at his numbers this year, averaging a tick under 13 points per game, 45.5% from the floor, nearly 37% from downtown. Pretty solid numbers on 5.5 attempts. And he does have that familiarity in playing with James Harden when the beard is able to come back. And this is more of me just kind of speculating and looking into the future. The NBA trade deadline could be crazy this year. Now, we always talk about these NBA trade rumors being plentiful, right? But I feel as though this year there's going to be a lot of movement. That could particularly be the case this year as well, including a guy like Eric Gordon. Before we get to Joe Harris, also want to tell you about the brand new Joel Embiid City Edition uniforms. What do you think is the biggest area of need for the Sixers? Just let me know right now in the comment section. As for that Embiid City jersey, I've liked basically every City jersey that the Sixers have had over the last couple of years. The Spectrum-themed jerseys last year were dope. The Brotherly Love unis are pretty fresh as well. I'm thinking about getting a hoodie. If you want to get one of these jerseys, you can. Some really good prices out there. The style, fantastic. Chatsports.com/76city. Get your Embiid City Edition jersey today for the City of Brotherly Love. Let's round out with this. Are the Brooklyn Nets going to move Joe Harris? According to Rick Bucher, Fox Sports NBA insider, the Nets are trying to move him because of his deal. $18 million this year, $19 million next year. That's a lot of money for a guy who the last 2 years hasn't been good. Last year had the ankle injury. This year the production hasn't been that good. But this year, 7.5 points per game, 3.5 rebounds, 40% from the floor, 33% from beyond the arc. And for a guy making $18 million, this is not good enough. Had that ankle surgery last year. Maybe he's still coming back from it. And this is a guy who just isn't impactful outside of shooting the basketball. And if he's not shooting the basketball well from deep, then he's just way too expensive. This at the time and this since the signing has been a classic Brooklyn Nets overpay. I will say this, though. I do think the Sixers, going back to that point that I made about Eric Gordon, they need shooting, and they really have missed Seth Curry. If Seth Curry was still on this team, I think the offense would just flow a little bit better. He teamed up so well with Joel Embiid. They had that two-man game really rocking, just like Embiid had it rocking with J.J. Redick. If the Sixers were able to hold on to Seth Curry in that James Harden trade, and Seth Curry probably wishes and hopes that he was still playing for the Sixers, man, that would have been an absolute steal for Daryl Morey. Last question for the homies before we hop on out of here. Would you trade for Joe Harris? You'd probably have to give up a pretty big salary. T for trade, P for pass. And another reminder to subscribe to 76ers Now. Year-round Sixers coverage, analysis, news, and rumors, trade deadline coverage, NBA draft coverage. We do it all, and it's 100% free. And if you are subscribed, make sure you type real one right now.